Okay, next item on the agenda is discussion, consideration, and possible action regarding an ordinance to control the placement of collection bins for charity organizations. Mr. Heath, Crime and Code Enforcement, if you could give the council and the audience a summary of what this issue is about.
Okay, we were given an inquiry by an organization requesting permission to openly solicit churches, businesses, schools, place these shoe and clothing bins. And some of these organizations that place those bins, Salvation Army, Goodwill, are nonprofit, but many of these are not. Now, with Stephanie's help, she'd asked several questions, and the particular group that had submitted the request answered these questions, but then we looked into the follow-through on some of those answers. We had more information, and we found out that a lot of these nonprofit organizations do have some unusual characteristics. They will place these under the, a lot of times under the disguise that they are helping, either giving a group a certain amount of money or someone oversees a certain amount of money. And it kind of plays on our American liberal heartstrings that says we like to give, which this nation does. But a lot of times that money is not used for those purposes, as is common sometimes. And so as a result, we looked into it fairly closely, and we found that a lot of these organizations make a lot of money. They pay no taxes, nor do they create any business in the town, nor do the items go for any charitable service. So we looked at some court cases and some other items, and we thought, we'll look into what other cities have done. Grapevine was one of the cities that had a very large discussion period of time over collection bins, because they found some very large bins that came into town, and it started to disrupt their tourist business and kind of dirty their town. And so when they looked into it, they studied about 12 different ordinances. They found out that Hearst, Texas had run across this, and they banned them altogether. Seagoville, Texas had come across this, they banned them altogether. And so there were various levels of enforcement, either doing an ordinance to carefully look at those, making sure they were nonprofit, they were properly placed, and they didn't just litter your landscape. Some of the towns totally precluded them. Some decided they would try to give an ordinance that gave a lot of limiting rules. And when I first looked at it, I thought, oh my goodness, if they place these things here, the only thing I could do is go to nuisance ordinance and say it's in the right of way, you have to move it. It's blocking your parking, we have to move it. But I looked at the possibility of the town being filled with 20 or 30 of these, and they would be eyesores, they'd be a problem, and they would not be beneficial. So I thought we need to move fairly quickly and come up with either a prohibiting ordinance or a very limiting ordinance, and try to come up with something. So I gave a sample here, which was an amalgamation of some of the ideas of what these other towns have. And they clearly defined attended, unattended donation boxes. They put permits on them, not that the fee is what is needed, but the opportunity to have knowledge of what they're doing, the recording of whether they're a 501c3, limiting the number of donation boxes, 1 or 2, to the location, maybe limiting the distance, keeping them away from setbacks, keeping them out of the right-of-way and the easements, putting no dumping signs on them, making sure the removal of junk is done in a certain time, and talking with Mr. Ray Moody on his ideas, and he said that what he had seen in Lake Worth and other areas, they have a one strike and you get the notification, and we have the opportunity to remove them if need be. This is, we have the picture here, if you notice, some of the state laws or federal laws that require them to put this on. Donations are not charitable. Some of these organizations make millions of dollars, and they have sweatshops overseas. They take the clothing, the shoes, and the items, and I believe this organization was caught doing that. They grind them up, use them for automobile insulation. People are getting $1 an hour or $1 a day wages in these countries, and they're bringing it back. It is for profit. It is not serving the poor. It is just something that creates a profit-making deal that does not supply income or taxation for the town. You have the other slide there with the two. Okay, this is in Stephenville where I live, and usually it's the only time I caught a picture of this that it wasn't littered with lawnmowers and junk all around it. They actually came and cleaned it up that day. I lost it because I wanted to take a picture of what it normally looks like. This is in the TxDOT right away. It's the corner of Graham and Lingleville in kind of that north end of town. You can see it quite a distance away, and it is not kept up as well as I thought, at least what they've stated they'd keep up. So I think we need to fairly quickly come up with something, either a limiting document, of which I have from Seagoville. There's only 2 lines in this, plus the whereases and all the fancy language. Donation boxes prohibited. All donation boxes, whether attended or unattended, are prohibited from being placed on property located within the territorial limits of the city of blank. Transitional provisions, a donation box that is located in the city as of the effective date of this ordinance shall be removed by such and such a date. And so that's the strong argument. This is one option. Totally limit them. And then we say, well, what do we do about the few that are here? Well, some of them may be questionable. Some of them are for profit, and they're not non-profit. They're not helping even the organization that are there except by a little bit. And so they have to be looked in for what they truly are. And it's totally in your power to try to decide if you want to do a partial control ordinance, or if you would like to do a limiting, precluding ordinance altogether.
Okay, Councilwoman Ramsey.
The only one that came to my mind, besides the Methodist Church using the recycling bins, is the box one at the Methodist Church thrift store,
Yes.
which is connected to the building, and somehow I didn't find whether that would fit in here, and that is a nonprofit.
Yes.
So.
Now,
But they do have the TV and the couches and furniture where people just leave them to get rid of.
as our B1 ordinance says, where material is not stored outside, it gives you a cleaner look. This is in your historic district. Now, your pre-existing nonprofit organization that is doing the best they can, and they do a lot of turnover. Now, sometimes if that material is placed in there, of course, you'll always have people come and drop a bicycle off in the street, and this, or pile of cans, or whatever they do. You'll always have that. But to make sure that you don't have the total blowouts that would come in a town that is tourist industry, that is designed for people to come through, as Mr. Nolan had said, in Cleburne, they have these boxes all about. Oftentimes what we do is we put an ordinance in too late. That's what I'm trying to prevent.
Well, I'm for not doing it at all. I mean, because we're small, tourism is our industry here.
Yes.
I just didn't want to affect, somehow with the exception of the, the connection of the Methodist Church, but all others, I'm for it. And I think the fee to have one, was left blank. I think the fee needs to be, higher than your normal fee.
Well,
But if we eliminate it, then we don't need to have that.
in short form, I can give our counselor the information on this to tweak it, if that's what your desire is.
I'm just speaking for me.
Yeah, I'm just saying that we've got something where we can be a page and a half, or something where we have to spell out details for what about this, what about that, what about this, if we're eliminating it. So it's up to the will of the council what you would feel would be wise.
What other than the thrift shop and the recycle bins over in, I believe that's also the Methodist Church, do we have any other charitable organization outdoor bins or drop-offs in the city?
I know one. The Boy Scouts have a trailer at the Expo Center where people will go up and throw aluminum cans in the trailer, how would that impact donations to them?
It's a donation.
So hopefully it won't, because I like Boy Scouts.
Yes, so do I. So do I. You have local organizations, that's one way to limit. If it's not a local organization and nonprofit, we don't allow it at all. Any outside organizations seeking to come in and put things in the town, there's many ways to write this. I'm not sure the proper answer at this time. It's, I mean, you're throwing a thought out, because do you preclude all, or do you limit and spell out, do we limit outside organizations? It's something when I hear these, I think and look at how others have done it, is usually the best way. If you precluded 100%, that's an easy shakedown. On your own private property, what you're doing under your organization there as Methodist Church collections over here is a little different from the for-profit industry on a site where the items are sent somewhere else. There's a little difference in that. And inside storage or shielded storage, the city of Coppell, as you can guess, would have Coppell, however you pronounce it, has an ordinance that's so strict that nobody's legally put one in because they require landscaping, parking, and a rock fence around the pin. So they decorated it in such a way that it shut everything out. Other towns have it where it's only locals that can do it.
Councilman Marquez, do you have a question?
Well, my example is the same thing with the trailer.
Okay.
It's within the 10 feet. It's actually considered a donation box because it's a temporary structure. It says trailer in here on section 92.40. And then if you look to the next one, and again, these are examples with location 92.44. It also states, it can't be in a parking area. So the primary use of a parking space, it can't be within that area. It has to literally be like in a grassy area.
If it was a local nonprofit on its own property,
Well, I think
there's
that's,
a lot of ways you can.
I think the biggest thing is that what this ordinance will do is it'll restrict the availability. Everyone within the city would have to know about this. But after that, the first time, then you understand within the organization, I've seen many of these in different parts of the country. And they do have that misconception saying that they're for nonprofit, and they actually are for profit, so.
And I think because, and the point that Councilwoman Ramsey, and please correct me if I'm wrong, she made point out, what I'm hearing from Mr. Heath is we have some options here to take it out completely with an ordinance. We have an option to do it, to restrict it to local organizations, nonprofit organizations, okay, or go to something that allows more outside. And with Councilwoman Ramsey's concern is that we not hinder those folks that already have them, that are local nonprofits. Do I have that correct?
Well,
Councilwoman
more or
Ramsey?
less, aren't the Boy Scouts nonprofit?
They
So,
are.
They are.
So we limit to everything but local nonprofit, that solves it right there.
That's one option.
I mean, just local
And
nonprofit.
Boy Scouts tend to be sponsored. When I was a Boy Scout, it was a church group or it was a junior high school. They had a junior high school that had it for a while.
But the Boy Scouts have to have
So then they place their bin
501c2
at
unless
that
they're
junior
under
high school.
someone.
They're here.
Yeah, so,
I
Councilman,
think the recycle bins at the Methodist Church have to be a little bit different though. I think somebody's making some money there. I think they get paid to have those there. I mean, I don't know all the particulars of that. That's a little bit different than how many they have there currently?
5.
5.
Which the limiting of
There needs to be some regulation on
Sure,
that.
yes.
I put 5 in our church parking lot.
fill it up.
Of course, we wouldn't have a place to park. But that's a little different than the drop here.
Yes, it is.
Because I know they're getting paid to have them there and they're getting some remuneration from.
Most of the organizations that have done it a long time will have, you may place things there, but it gets taken in a garage door and they put it indoors. It is
Right
not
now, they've
visible
not
from
had to do
outside.
anything. There's no an ordinance of
And
Methodist
it's,
churches.
and, you know, it's sad, that's already existing.
Yes.
And we're coming in with this ocean wave of, really, I'll call it litter for your town. It's a tourist town. And so then we have to readdress the old because we're limiting the new.
As city attorney, have you been able to weigh in on this issue, or after Mr. Nolan and Mr. Heap had discussions with you about these issues?
I spoke with them both about it, and it's really to how the council wants to limit it to. I think to me, it's important to figure out if y'all want to invite anybody from outside to come do business here at all or not. If the answer should be no, then it'd be pretty simple, limit to just the local nonprofits already in existence. So that's really the only direction I would ask for in helping them write it, is just, do you want to include anybody from outside the opportunity to come to set one of these boxes, whether it's for profit or not profit?
Councilman Moore?
I'm all for recycling, but again, that's not totally local, what we're talking about down there.
And that is probably an issue that we would probably need to, I'm kind of sensing with that one little thing outstanding, we might need to check into that and what exactly that status is before we give some direction or about how to structure this.
You might be able to make that a legal non-conforming use, such as house existing in an industrial park. House was existing there, it doesn't fit the zoning, but it was existing prior to the zoning, so it becomes a legal non-conforming use. If it's ever moved off, then you can't move it back on there. In the same way with those recycling boxes.
So
I believe
use
that,
similar verbiage in the
Right, I believe those
structuring.
boxes are Abitibi, which is paper recycling.
Mhm.
And they have those virtually every school around here. And I'm not sure how much money the schools make off of it, but they do take all the recycling of all the paper.
Okay, so Councilwoman Ramsey?
My suggestion is, I'd like to give direction because I'm tired of kicking things down the road.
Absolutely.
And I'd like to give direction, and the council can agree or disagree, that we do a local, nonprofit only, and that we deal with a paragraph of existing recycling bins that exist now. No more can be brought in. You know, whatever the verbiage is that you have to do to make it legal. And let's get this show on the road so that even if we have to put it on one of the special agendas for tax rate or whatever, because as we well know from the experience, Mr. Moody was here and our police officer dealing with the panhandling. You know, we didn't have ordinances in place, and that became an issue. So we don't want this to become an issue if they're already looking at Somerville County, Glen Rose.
Okay.
Councilman Moore?
Mr. Heap, what would you suggest for the number? To me, 6 is way too many.
I'm sorry?
How many receptacles? We need to hit a limit on the receptacles, how many you can have, instead of having 6 lined up.
Well, I saw either 1 or 2, I never saw 5 or 6.
5 or 6, I think
Anywhere.
that's excessive.
Anywhere.
I think one's enough.
Yeah.
It says it's
I'll be
spaced
fine with
between
it.
each other.
So a group can have 1,
A group can have, my thing is a group can have
I'd
one.
be fine with that.
And for that matter, in most cases, when you recycle, you need to pick it up more often, not put more bins.
Okay, so am I hearing a direction from the council of local only?
Okay, that should be.
Yes?
What about in the industrial park area? Is there a place where there maybe be more to be set up for that kind of purpose in the industrial park, somewhere industrial area? I'm just throwing that out.
It's a more, less restricted zone.
Yes,
if you
where
wanted to do
we
that.
could take recycling items.
Recycling items.
Of course, I know we've got a landfill.
True recycling items.
Personally, the problem I see with recycling bins and items is that the tendency is I just want to dump it off here rather than going all the way over here to take care of. And even our industrial areas are pretty close to some of our event areas and stuff that tourists go to. And I think that, I agree with Councilwoman Ramsey, the more we can do to keep our city clean, and need appearing, I think
Well, I would
is
think recycling
better.
is part of the thing too.
Well, if that's what it's used for, but then who's, we get into the monitoring and this, that, and the other thing. Councilman Marquez?
I know we don't currently have an ordinance for this. The possibility, is there a possible way we can create a section for future use or a recycling section involved in there? Because as you grow bigger, you're gonna need an area for a recycling, kind of like the county already has over there by the dump. They are the waste station.
Waste station.
But, maybe put it in a section there so for future use when we come up to that. But right now, what I see is we do need direction, and I agree with Councilwoman Ramsey.
I'm working for Clovis, New Mexico area. We recycle, we ground up houses that we demoed for about 1/5 the price of what you do in Texas. And we recycled concrete, and we could sell the bits and pieces for road base. Had a grinder. The city had a large landfill, and they purchased that. So there were certain things that the city did that they got involved in. This is a recycle area we've dedicated for that. It's not a clothing drop, it's not this, it's not that. You have aluminum cans, you have this, you have this. And that would be separate from this ordinance. This ordinance is to stop the littering of your town with these boxes.
Okay. So then, Mr. Heath,
Get an ordinance
Mr. Nolan.
drafted and get it back to you.
get an ordinance drafted with the limitations that the council has put, and we can most definitely, if it's available, get it into one of those special sessions coming up so we can get it further established. Okay?